Ook in de zomermaanden kijk je iedere werkdag om 8:30 naar onze livecast. Laat je inspireren en ontdek nieuwe perspectieven bij het Pakhuis de Zwijger.
Hello, how are you? I just want to welcome you here to Pakhuis de Zwijger. I'm with Fifth Friday Sisterhood. We are an advocacy storytelling group that was founded about 5 years ago by Manjit, Krishna, Kaur. I am Tori Egherman. We're going to begin by saying Black Lives Matter, trans lives matter, queer lives matter, women's lives matter. I'm so excited about the program this evening. The people that will be telling stories have such rich and wonderful experiences to share, and I feel so privileged to be here tonight, hosting them and introducing them. You know, we live in, we live in very interesting times, which, as we all know, is a curse, not a blessing. And our stories, our music, our art, these are what contain the chaos. They give it a home. And tonight, we have several storytellers and a musician who are going to bring some chaos home, give it a little order, and really provoke you. So I'm excited. I hope you are too. And I want to start by introducing our very first storyteller, the only person in the group who actually calls himself a storyteller. And that is Chidi Onwuka. Chidi, please join us. Yay!
Applause. Thank you. Okay. Hey, way back in the day, when all on earth lived in reasonable harmony with all else on earth, in a place that is now called Eastern Nigeria was the land of the Seven Hills. And when we arrived there, the four corners of this land are buzzing with excitement. And the excitement is there simply because it's the initiation of a new elder. And an elder is probably like one of the modern leaders of today, but without the attitude. Now, as custom had it, a vast circular theatre was built at the midpoint between the Seven Hills. And at the center of the theatre was this perfectly round stage, approximately waist high, above everything else. And in the middle of that stage was this mighty speaking shell that was a relic of a since vanished species of snail. And it was from that point the new elder would share their vision for the land of the Seven Hills. Now, the speaker for the day was somebody special. It was a woman called Nneka. Nneka was 23 harvests old, and that was the youngest elder ever. She was also the daughter of Eze, the formerly wise, now expired, and it was her mission to enlighten the people of this area. So, of course, the ceremony began, and you had 2.5 hours of prestigious chitter-chatter from those whose job it was to do that. And then Nneka stepped forward and spoke. People, creatures, plants, wind, rain, moon, sun, Mother Earth, stars above, wise ones in the great heavens, I am your servant. Now, people heard this, and they loved what they heard, and they broke out into 7 minutes long of cheering and joy. Eventually, they calmed down, of course, and Nneka continued. She said, one of the privileges of this particular position is the fact that I'm surrounded by the wisest of the wise. And she indicated a circle of people sitting around her. And the crowd immediately began cheering again, this time for 2.5 minutes. The extremely wise people accepted this ovation with the most dramatic humility. And then she continued. these fine people have taught me everything I know. They have taught me so much in so short a time. I have learned the history of our traditions. I understand the way of the weather. I can recognize every plant and creature in the land of the 7 hills. And yet, the more I knew, the further away I seemed to float from the very things I felt I needed to know. It was as if something was missing, something that should connect me to the ground was not there. Well, of course, the crowd immediately began to murmur. They had never heard this kind of speech, and they put it down to her youth. And then she continued, and she said, before I came here, I had no idea what that something was. But now as I look around and see you in your hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, I ask myself, how can I expect you to listen to me when I don't know your story? How is it possible for me to guide the farmer when I don't know the heft of a hoe? How can I advise a woman at a loom when my fingers have never felt the burn of thread? How can I have a vision for people who I do not know? And so, rather than waste time with a beautiful but empty speech, I suggest we take this opportunity. We're all gathered here, find a stranger and ask them their story. And so it was, in the land of the 7 hills, under the guidance of Neka, there was a period of great enlightenment and subsequent prosperity. Unfortunately, as we know, things do come to an end. And because of that, today, we are still here fighting to get our story heard. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Thank you
right.
so much, Chidi. Chidi, you don't have to run off.
I'm sorry. I'm a nervous human being.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
All
We're
right.
not used to like this,
No, it's
kind of
very-
like distant audience
Yes.
somewhere out
No,
in the ether.
no. Okay.
So that was a lovely story.
Thank you.
And how long have you been telling stories?
Oh, I think like all of us, from the first time you do something wrong and your mother says, why did you do it? You just begin. And if you continue this, you'll be like me. So, yeah.
Oh, so your mother is the inspiration behind all your stories.
Survival is the inspiration. No, but I think I can say, I know in school I used to record stories on my mother's tape recorder, and I'd use those stories. You could exchange books, and and the stories were currency. Then of course I stopped. And then when my kids appeared, then it's story time again, and then I stopped. And then I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started telling publicly. Yes.
Well, it was such a pleasure.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
So much.
Thank
Right.
you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Our next storyteller comes to us from Uganda. Am I right? And, oh no, I'm wrong. It's always great to be wrong. Our next storyteller comes to us from South Africa. And I met Busi last year at the university, at Vrije Universiteit here in Amsterdam, where she is a researcher and also a teacher. She does work between Amsterdam and South Africa. And I'm really excited that Busisiwe Nsele is here with us this evening to tell her story. Thank you. Thank you, Busi.
It was 1976, June 16 in Soweto, where Mrs. Nsele Jabile was in labor. As she was in labor, Soweto, where her home is, was Piri, there was an uprising. And it was on that day when she couldn't even get her child to hospital to deliver that my dad decided it was time to find greener pastures. And the family was moved right after my sister was born to Swaziland. So I, Busisiwe Nsele Octavia, formerly known as Octavia, was born in Swaziland. But I grew up in Swaziland knowing that I was South African because my parents were never speaking the real Siswati. They were speaking Zulu. And my surname was Ntsele, which meant was different from everyone else. But fast forward, after growing up, I actually realized that in 1994, I wanted to be part of the new South Africa. So my old brother Felix was driving us around in Soweto again, back to Soweto. And we were all excited. The Rainbow Nation was just being given birth, which was what had actually took us to Swaziland, which half the time when I'm in Amsterdam and I'm like, I'm from Swaziland, they like, you're from Switzerland, because most of the time people don't know where Swaziland is. But I've been lucky enough to be raised in Swaziland. Half the time people would say there's no racism in Swaziland. I asked 2 questions. How then is it that Swaziland was a British protectorate if there was no racism? Who were we protecting Swazis against, and why did we need protection? Secondly, my beautiful name, Busisiwe, means blessing, and I was named by my grandfather. But when I got to school, I needed to have an English name, and my name was then Octavia. But in 1994, I decided I no longer ceased to exist as Octavia. I wanted to be called Busisiwe because I was transitioning into the new South Africa. And luckily, that was my honors here as well when I was starting my career as a lecturer and somebody that wanted to be in education and academia. I was full of hope that Black people were now allowed to enter a space where before we never dreamt of seeing people like us. But fast forward in 2020, I realized that some of this hope is gone. Hence today, I must say that I'm missing hope because we sit here during COVID-19 and I wonder, how come is it that as I walk down my street during those hours where we're allowed to take a walk, and I see big farmlands, people playing golf, people that don't look like me. I see other people own llamas, which are things that I never knew existed. And just across me, you see on television, people are deploying military to make sure that people really do stick to the COVID-19 restrictions. Then I asked myself, why is it that people in Alex cannot actually social distance? But it is quite true that now in 2020, we see that still gross injustices exist in South Africa. The inequalities are even much bigger now that we are able to see that there's schools without water, there's places without internet, and there's people that don't even have sanitation. That brings me back to say, how then do we say we are in 2020 and we're living in a new South Africa, which is the Rainbow Nation, where all these inequalities are basically just existing? I watched the one day a video where the police were actually talking to a young lady that was walking her dog and telling her kindly that she's not supposed to be walking her dog because we're on lockdown. But I also watched on the same day how the military was deployed to places like Alex. And as we speak today, we have people that have actually died from this. People like Collins, who we all know that died from that incident, and 10 other people that died from just police brutality. And I still ask myself that, how is it that the same people are not treated alike? Especially because now what's even worse was that pre-1994, we used to get hippos, which were the same hippos that were deployed June 16, 1976 to actually beat Black students. But now the military people have changed. It is our own people, but still the treatment is different. So for me, I sit here today as an academic and somebody that's supposed to be writing. And I watch the screen and I watch my books and I ask myself, what's missing? And I think that South Africa is missing hope. Hope in the government system, hope in the Rainbow Nation that we're promised, and hope in knowing that things are going to get better as I look around and see all these inequalities around me. How can we move forward then? I ask myself. Move forward from being an Octavia to a Busisiwe, but still being treated like an Octavia. I really think that today I am missing hope. Thank you.
Well, that was quite powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Busi. When we were speaking, you said something that I just want to repeat for everybody, which was that you said you were talking about these two contagions, this contagion of COVID-19 and this contagion of police violence. And you said once again, we see who is protected. And it's not the Black person. And I found that very, very strong. Do you have, let's say, 1 minute? Do you have a response? Do you have anything extra you'd like to say?
I was hoping not to repeat that because it pains me to actually talk about it right now and say that, you know, it's just yesterday that the president was making his speech, and we find it as a nation, we have to choose between the economy and saving lives. And for me, if our choice is we're saving the economy, who still holds the economy in South Africa? For me, if we're saying we're protecting the economy, who are we really protecting? Because we all know that the people's lives that are not going to be saved by going back to the economy are the people that are without the economy, which then was my point, which I was making about the golf courses and the llamas that other people own. And today, some of us still don't even have land just to plant a vegetable garden, a herbal garden, to even fight the very same COVID-19 that we are saying for us to beat that, our immunity has to be very strong. So if you are going to say I must move to go to a fruit and veg, where there's everybody else trying to get the same cheap vegetables, while other people are social distancing at home and picking up vegetables from their very own gardens, then who are we saving and who are we sacrificing? Once again, I go back to that scene in 1976, and I still think that we already can see who's going to be sacrificed even during this time of COVID-19.
Those are really important words, and I'm sorry that I made you say them, and I'm sorry I made you think about that again. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, storyteller, who has some experiences with racism right here in the Netherlands. And believe it or not, it's so shocking, right? Her name is Yusra Abdullahi, and I'm so excited to hear her. She's a migration specialist, and she will be speaking to us as soon as I stop. So please, go ahead.
Hello. Yes, so I would like to share with you my experiences in the Netherlands and racism. So first, I also would like to say that I have lived, studied, and worked in many different countries, and I've never experienced as much racism anywhere as I have in the Netherlands, which is why I've always maintained that this country is not as open and liberal as Dutch people will have you believe. So yeah, that's first and foremost. I moved to the Netherlands in 2017 to pursue a master's in African studies in Leiden, at Leiden University in Leiden. And I quickly learned that, the course was being taught from a very colonial, neo-colonial angle. I quickly learned that the professors were, blatantly racist, and they would not shy away from failing you if you spoke up. I dealt with racist classmates, housemates. I would be yelled at in the streets by strangers. And I had all these horrible experiences in Leiden. So last year I decided to, at the start of last year after my master's, I decided to escape from this racism and move away from this system. And as I was looking for job opportunities abroad, I made the mistake of accepting an internship at the Dutch embassy in Addis Ababa. I hoped that my experiences there would be different, but they were not. And I dealt with racism there again, but I would like to highlight this one particular senior diplomat who made it his mission to pick on me and to make my life there miserable. I would like to read out a few of the things he said to me over the course that I was there. In my very first week, he said to me, "You look Somali and you sound British. What's so Dutch about you? Why are you here?" He said that as he laughed. Another time he said to me, "You like yoga. Isn't that more of an expat activity, Yusra? Aren't you more of a local? Yoga is not Western." Another time he said to me, as I was eating, minding my business, and he couldn't mind his, he came up to me and he casually asked me, "Yusra, do you know who your father is? Because I hear most Somalis don't." So these things were always said in public. They were never hidden. It was never talked down on by anyone else. I always was shocked, and I would ask him to stop speaking to me in that way, and that never happened. During the course of my internship, I was already actively looking for a job after the internship ended. And I've always dealt with a lot of racism in the job market. And I've been very vocal about that during my time at the embassy. Yet somehow it didn't stop the senior diplomat from making my job hunt a lot worse. One time he said to me, you're a Black immigrant woman. It will be so easy for you to find a job, Yusra. Why are you stressing about finding a job? You're the quota that everyone needs, knowing full well I'm not a quota. Another time he said to me, the reason you won't get a job is because you refuse to accept a local salary. Lower your ambitions. Another time he said to me, and this is on my very last day, as I was still very stressed about being unable to find a job, he said to me, I will see you walking around the streets of Addis holding up a sign begging for a job. Good luck with that. So he wasn't the only person who made such derogatory comments. Derogatory comments were made by many of my Dutch colleagues at the embassy. And whenever I said, why are you saying this? You do know that that's unacceptable. I would be met with, oh no, that's just Dutch directness. But it was racism under the guise of Dutch directness. Everything I did was questioned there. My ambitions, my right to exist in a Dutch space, why I always hung out with local colleagues. Even at the embassy, when I met my partner, who is Dutch, I was met with a lot of backlash and a lot of people asking us, why are you together? You have nothing in common, you're so different. And when I asked what makes us so different, it would always be, you don't even look the same, meaning he's white, you're Black, how dare you be with him? So that's really my story of how I tried to escape Dutch racism, and it followed me to East Africa. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Yusra. Thank you, Yusra. That's quite, for me as a white person, I have been in situations where I've seen that kind of language used against people around me, and even to some extent myself, since I'm not exactly the normal Dutch person. But it's always, we're always told, oh, you're just not used to our directness. And I find that really, what you said about it couching, it hiding the racism, a very powerful statement. So it's not just about Zwarte Piet. It's about a whole system of little put-downs. And I see that we have to move on, but if there's time at the end, I'm sure that we will have more questions for you. So thank you so much. It was really, really an honor to hear your story. I am really excited to introduce our next performer this time. Shishani is a musician, an activist, and a musicologist, and an anthropologist. And she's here to bring us some music. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shishani. Take it away.
Thanks so much. I'll have a little something to say before I sing the song. I was born in Namibia, have a white dad, Black mom. We were part of South Africa for a long time that many people don't know. So we experienced apartheid just as well. My parents came together still during that time. Then moving to the Netherlands, coming here, coming of age as a person, realizing that I am a queer person, having to find your way between the identities, between the whiteness, between the Blackness, between heteronormative societies. I've always been very aware of all these structures and all the labels and all the boxes and everything that we're actually trying to get out of. This song I wrote when I went back to Namibia in my 20s, because I've always felt I was made to feel that I was from somewhere else, because people keep asking, but where are you really from? Waar kom je echt vandaan? Well, then I think the place that I was born, I guess, that is Namibia. But it's not only that I, in myself, always felt a strong need to head back, but it definitely helped this Dutch directness, of being curious, but it's not necessarily curious. It's basically saying you are not part of us. So coming back to Namibia, I also encountered so many stories of friends of mine who go through the worst things that you can imagine, being a queer person, being a trans person. And I was so, I think, just devastated and furious that I wrote this song. And to me, it's very much a story that I keep sharing, even though I wrote it nearly 10 years ago, because I also heard stories of especially young girls who then found out that I was an openly queer person, and that they had the courage to tell me that they were queer and they didn't know where to go or who to ask for help, and that the song helped them. So sharing these stories and sharing songs, let's keep doing it, because you never know who you touch and who you help with it. This one is called Minority. You got rules telling me what to do. Is there anybody checking up on you? I'm no fool. I do what I've got to do. Many have died for a freedom of mind, for the freedom of truth. Could you be guilty for being a little bit different from the rest? Come on, come on, come on now, people. Put yourself to the test. Every minority has a priority. We want to be equally free. Love me or hate me, discriminate me, but you can't change the way I feel. Who is the one to judge? Telling me who to love, telling me how to live, telling me what life is. Oh, how you're mistreating me. I said, oh, how you're mistreating me. And oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. This ain't the way. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. What you say that I'm not supposed to be walking this earth, that I don't deserve to live a free life. I know I've so much to give to you. I feel no shame despite your blame, 'cause my love is real. Could you be guilty for being a little bit different from the rest? No. Come on, come on, come on now, people. Put yourself to the test. Every minority has a priority. We want to be equally free. Love me or hate me, discriminate me, but you can't change the way I feel. Who's the one to judge? Telling me who to love, telling me how to live, telling me what life is. Oh, how you're mistreating me. I said, oh, how you're mistreating me. And oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, this ain't the way. Oh, 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 no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. We need a black sheep to distract us from reality. Point your finger at me. I bet that makes it easy. We need to realize where the true problem lies. It ain't who you are, but the size of your mind. Can you see with your heart and look past preconceptions? Can you see my soul past the labeling section? This is who I am. Gonna stand up proud. Won't let no one bring me down. Ooh, won't let no one bring me down.
Is there a mic? Shishani, hi. I'm Manjit Krishna Kaur. I'm the artistic director and the buck stops with me. So I'm going to ask the difficult question.
All right.
So you and I spoke earlier about different types of racism in different types of places where we are.
Yeah.
And you have one foot in the Netherlands, and you have a little bit of a foot in Belgium.
Correct.
Where we know that Congo has been a huge issue.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned that other people told you their story about the queerness. Do you feel a responsibility to actually be forced to speak about such things?
Well, I feel a responsibility because at some point I do see that I'm in a privileged position to be able to speak about it as an artist, but more importantly, because I have a family that supports me. When I think about my friends, people I know and people I love, in Namibia, in this case, but it could be anywhere, many people have been thrown out of their families. So they don't have a safe place to come back to. So if I can have a stage and I am safe, then I definitely see it as a responsibility to talk about whatever matters. If it's about queer rights, if it's about racism, if it's about, women's reproductive rights. We're trying to legalize abortion in Namibia. I mean, there's a lot of things that I feel a need to talk about.
And could you tell us one difference between the racism in the Netherlands and Belgium that you've experienced?
Yes, well, the Dutch are blatant. I call it Trump style. You know what you get. There's no hiding. With the Belgian type of racism, it's there, it's always lurking, you feel it, but you don't know what it is. And I made a comparison to a refrigerator that stinks. When you open it, the Dutch one, there's like a broccoli that is rotting, and you can see it's rotting, and that's why it stinks. So you take it out, and you clean your refrigerator. If you open a Belgian one, you have to get everything out of there. You still don't know what it was that was, rotten, and then you figure out, oh, it's the milk. But there's no way of seeing where it's coming from. And that is what I experienced, that it's, I don't know if the mic's still on. So that's a thing of like, it's being there, it's feeling it, but you don't know where it's coming from. And I have a bigger problem with that than knowing exactly who thinks what. At least I know who I have in front of me. But if you feel it and you don't know where it's coming from and you try to talk about the problem, people say, no, there's no problem. What are you talking about? That's an even bigger problem. So that is my experience between Belgium and the Netherlands. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about this, but I think the steps are being made by activists, by people that have been doing this for decades, and finally we're starting to talk about it, and we can see how hard it is to talk about this. But I'm happy that it's a very uncomfortable situation right now for everybody, because it means that, it's way overdue, and we need to talk about this. So I'd rather be in an uncomfortable situation where we are forced to talk about it than pretend that everything's fine, because we're so tolerant and we're so lovely. We're the Netherlands and we are not racist, or we are Belgium and we're not racist, because that's not the case, unfortunately.
Well, thank you so much for bringing your voice, your knowledge and your experiences and your wonderful music to the Fifth Friday Sisterhood.
You so much.
I hope you can stay just towards the end so we can get a group shot as well as get a couple of questions from probably the other speakers.
Yes.
And I will hand over the microphone back to Tori, our moderator and host for the evening. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello. Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to introduce our next storyteller, Nyamishana from Uganda. And Prue is an amazing storyteller. She's been writing for Global Voices for years, and now is part of a communications firm. And really excited that if the internet agrees, we will see her. Will the internet agree? That is the question. Maybe not. Yes. Okay, Busi, Kadebe. Is the internet agreeing with you? maybe not. Okay, great. Pussy. Pussy Radebe is not Prue, but she is an amazing thinker and storyteller and economist. The first time I heard Busi tell a story, I just want to tell you, she was just throwing caution to the wind. She wasn't even keeping a budget that month. So we're pretty excited to have her here and have her speak to us about this very serious issue. And Busi, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great, we're ready to hear your story. Perfect.
I've decided to talk about racism. I have a strange relationship to racism. You would think that I, Busisiwe Radebe, a Black woman born in South Africa, would know a thing or two about racism. But until recently, I think I've been oblivious to it. Not really oblivious, I now know, because racism is like the air that I breathe. It is and has always been in my life. Part of my awakening to the racist soup that I live in came in 2015 when students at South African universities embarked on what we call the Fees Must Fall movement. The movement was initially to eradicate university fees, but came to encompass so many more other movements, like the decolonization of South African education, or what we now call the Rhodes Must Fall movement, referring to Cecil John Rhodes and his very racist views, among other things. As pictures of students toppling statues of Rhodes all over were sort of splashed on South African media, I realized that I had a relationship with Cecil John Rhodes. On my walks to school, it was a 72-ton statue of Cecil John Rhodes on a horse looking down at me as I was walking to school. As a student, it was a statue of Rhodes on the University of Cape Town campus, sort of surveying the campus and looking down on me as I was walking to class. Cecil John Rhodes has always had his eyes on me. It's him and his buddies, the Rand Lords, that ensured that I got a bursary to go to university. So we've got this strange relationship with this very racist guy, and it didn't even occur to me that I must be bothered by statues of Cecil John Rhodes. As the students were toppling statues of Rhodes, I spoke to a friend of mine who went to the University of Cape Town, and I said to her, Nsiki, you were one of the first Black people on this campus. Why weren't you bothered by Rhodes? I don't know why I wasn't bothered by Rhodes, but why weren't you bothered by Rhodes? And she looked at me and said, Busi, back then we had bigger fights. We were just wanting to get an education that a statue of Rhodes did not bother me at all. That statue was the least of my worries. I mean, my friend's view is absolutely valid, but it doesn't explain how I did my undergrad degree at the University of Stellenbosch and didn't experience racism even there. I mean, South Africans will know that the University of Stellenbosch has very, very close ties to sort of the apartheid system. Some people say the word apartheid was probably birthed at the University of Stellenbosch. When I went to campus, I always joked that we were 5 Black people on the entire campus. We know that University of Stellenbosch, every single prime minister of South Africa between 1919 and 1948 came from that very university, and I thought I didn't experience racism. It was only later that I realized, oh my word, I did. I did exactly what Nsiki was doing. I tried to assimilate so much into what was going on with the university that somehow I probably had a weird internalized disliking of myself as a Black person. I wanted to just fit in with a crowd that it took away what I was as a Black person. And now currently I've decided to reclaim that part of me because I realize it was always there. There is no hiding who I absolutely am. I'm currently living in the Netherlands, and it's been sort of an amazing thing that this thing with roads has followed me, this thing with racism has followed me. But this time, I am so much more aware of it, and I can call it out at all times. I used to be embarrassed at my oblivion to sort of the racism, but now this awareness has shown me that I can live my life, live it authentically, and call out that particular racism. It hasn't gone away, and there are sort of issues I still have. I mean, I'm trying to look for a job, and I keep on thinking, oh my word, it is that name that is absolutely particular, showing that I am sort of a Black woman, that is closing doors for me on that avenue. But I'm not a victim in any of it. I have done absolutely wrong, nothing wrong. I don't see why I'm punished for that particular name. I am going to sort of own it and own my race, because for so long I've been oblivious to it. But now I just take it as I am. I am Busisiwe Radebe, a Black woman from South Africa.
Wow, Busi. You are amazing, and I really appreciate that story. We're running low on time, so maybe we'll have some extra at the end. I hope so. But until then, is Prue back? Oh, maybe we're not running out of time. But okay, so I'll ask you one question. Busi, when we were speaking, you also spoke about your name and the names of your siblings, and in comparison to the names of your parents. Can you just tell us about that just for a few extra seconds?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, my parents decided not to give us any Western-sounding names. So I am Busisiwe Radebe. My brother is Nkululeko Bonginkosi Radebe. There are absolutely no Western names. My mother, on the other hand, is Irene, and my dad is Daniel. I don't know, and I never understood why they did it until actually this year, where when I went to school, sort of we still had sort of the segregated system. And later on, I could attend a school that was mixed with other white kids. My sort of friends went to one school, and I went to another school. And this year I asked my mother, as we were chatting, why did you send me to that particular school and not that other school? And my mother, who I thought was not political at all, and was a kind little Christian lady, looked at me and said, you know what, at that other school, because you were Black, they wanted to give you sort of an IQ test and hold you back. And I was never going to have that. And she wants us to be sort of authentically Black. And I thought, oh my word, that's the most interesting thing. Because I thought this woman was sort of a docile, sort of calm woman, but she wasn't at all. And she did that on purpose because we were Black.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Prue is back online, and so you heard my introduction of her before. I'm just going to cut right to Prue Nyamishana. Prue?
My name is Prudence Nyamishana. My name means sunshine. So I live in an all-Black country. Have I experienced racism as a Black woman? Yes, until I was very old, in my mid-20s. I had never wondered about the color of my skin. I never questioned whether I was beautiful because I was surrounded by love. My parents, my friends, we did not question our existence. However, when I became a corporate woman and I started interacting with the other people, one of the stories that I like to share is I went to a coffee shop in my own country, and the waitress did not pay attention to me because of the color of my skin. And the waitress is not white. She's not Asian. She's a Ugandan woman like me, but she has internalized that self-hate, a legacy of colonialism. And so the restaurant, I was meeting a Canadian student, a friend, who wanted to know more about my writing work. And so after 10 minutes of waiting at the restaurant and no one was paying attention to me, suddenly my friend came. And when she arrived, everyone, all the waitresses were eager to serve her. And they came frequently to our table to ask us whether we were all right. And I thought at first that, okay, maybe they're just being lazy, the customer care is poor, but looks like the customer care was selective. I was not a client of that area. And there were the name holds a local language name, and it is clearly I wasn't the client. But I brushed it off. I could still walk in the streets and no one will call me for the color of my skin. And that is the privilege I have for living in my country, Uganda. I love my country so much. It is like the most beautiful country you can ever go to. I mean, I have traveled around the world and I can tell you that this is the most beautiful country that I have been to. We have 28 degrees centigrade like from January to December. So the next time I questioned my existence was when I traveled within Africa, but in Egypt. I went to a market in Sharm el Sheikh, and the men in the market kept asking me, "Are you from Africa?" And I'm thinking, "You're not from Africa?" And I could not understand why everyone is distancing themselves from being a Black African. And again, that is the legacy of colonialism. Our neighbors here, Ethiopia, they are in the East African region. But when you go to Ethiopia, Ethiopians will also ask you, "Are you from Africa?" Of course, not the woke ones. We have the woke ones, but there are those who have refused to learn. "Are you from Africa?" Come on, aren't you in Africa? So the colonial legacy did is to paint Black as bad, as dirty, as dangerous. I don't know why nobody wants to associate with this beautiful color. And so another time when I traveled out of Africa, it was on a plane, and on the plane I was the only one. As soon as we disembarked, it was at the height of the Ebola virus in 2015, and in West Africa. And a cleaner stopped me. I refused. I said, "No, you don't have the authority to stop me." Everyone was running to catch the next flight. I told him, "No, you cannot stop me. I will not stop for you." So I ran. But when I went to the toilet, I mean, there were these fancy toilets at the Hong Kong airport. I had never seen them. They are not there in my country. They were self-flushing and all. And when I got out, all the women that were lining on my toilet moved. I was looking at them in the mirror while washing my hands, and it is only the new ones that entered that lined up on the toilet that I had left. I felt so bad. And when I came back home after my long trip, I was determined to make a difference. I was determined to tell stories. So I started a website. This is uganda.org. We were determined to tell positive, beautiful stories. But along the way, I was asking myself, why do I have to question my existence? Why do I have to explain who I am? Why am I even explaining my existence to people who are not even willing? They've already made up their minds to acknowledge that I am not a human being. So with all this subtle racism, of course, because that was the beginning of my traveling, there is still more subtle racism. And I kept asking myself, I just want to be me. When I'm invited to a meeting because there's a token seat for a Black woman, a Black woman blogger or something, I do not want to explain myself. I am tired of pitching myself I'm tired of explaining that I can be smart, that I can be intelligent, just because I come from a country which everybody has labeled third country, third world country, whatever that means. I was talking to my friends in New York, for instance. The apartment that I live in, well, it might be in the third country, but the apartment that I live in is like ×3 what they live in. So I am living my best life in my third country. And I am so proud to be here. And it pisses me off that because of the legacy of colonialism, a white male with zero experience will come and take a job of a woman who has a PhD. How sad can that be? And so I would like for people to know that Black Lives Matter, just because I come from a third so-called, and I don't even know who came up with Sub-Saharan Africa. It is. I really don't like that term, Sub-Saharan Africa, because it is a way of dividing us. I just wish that one day people will realize that the pigment of their skin does not make them any better than us. It is my hope. I might not see it in my lifetime, but I hope my great-grandkids can see it. It is my hope and prayer that white people, Asian people, or even the light-skinned African women or men realize that the pigment of a skin does not make you any better than any other person. So I just want to exist. I just want to be me. I want to make mistakes. I want to be angry and not be labeled Black, angry woman. I just want to be me, a human being. I want to be a human being before I can be anything else.
Wow. Thank you, Prue. You are amazing. And I feel so privileged to have gotten to know you, and I really thank you for sharing that with us. Really quickly, because we only have a few minutes left, I'm going to introduce Krishna with her story. Thank you, Krishna.
Okay, really quickly, because we really only have a couple of minutes left. My name is Manjit Krishna Kaur. I'm going to talk about imperialism and the effect it's having, and in that imperialist mode, hey, you stole the colours from us. I am claiming it back. This land is now occupied and it belongs to the Fifth Friday Sisterhood. So here we go. My story. Oh, do we have some images? Okay. In imperialism, they tell you that when they teach it in schools, that we all live in a piece of land which they came and took away from us. What they don't tell us is that thousands of us, millions of us, have to leave our countries to go and earn money to send it home so that our elders can keep our countries the way they should be. This is me in the last photograph taken in 1979. I'm in the middle, in green, and the two little people at the front Here and here, wearing rainbow-coloured clothing, are my children. So, this was the last picture. After loads of violence, loads of oppression, I left because I didn't want my children to grow up like that. Instead, I grew up and my children followed me into a world which was very different. We lived in Bristol. The only thing I could do was cook, and so I cooked for Nicaragua, El Salvador, for the Greenham Common Women's Group, and all the missiles disappeared and we won wars. But my children, one day, came with me to a rainbow-coloured ship that was docked, and I cooked for the crew there. In 1985, we came to the Netherlands. In 1985, the French Secret Service fired on that ship and blew it to pieces. The only thing that my children remembered was the little rainbows on it, so they would paint their rooms everywhere they went in rainbows, and they would sing a song. Red and yellow and pink and green, purple and orange and blue. So the rainbow was stuck inside them. As they grew up, they went in their direction, and my daughter joined that rainbow-coloured organisation and started helping save the Arctic. I, however, continued to cook. And so, after they grew up and went home on their separate ways as children and started producing grandchildren for me, I went to study and found my roots. Because back in the part of Asia where I come from, their lands were still being robbed, and they were actually still being poisoned by companies like Monsanto, putting fertilizers into their ground and destroying their crops, leaving them, again, with the imperialist idea of existence. However, I went out and joined them. And my daughter, the one who joined the rainbow-coloured organisation, also began to help me out. And in the end, we both decided to take on the law together. And today, we happily travel around the globe, helping Indigenous people fight for their rights, as well as starting to teach our grandchildren the same song. Red and yellow and pink and green, purple and orange and blue. I can sing a rainbow, hope you'll sing it with me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Krishna. That was lovely. Lovely way to end our evening. I am so excited that we got to hear these stories tonight, and I wish we had more time because everyone has more to tell us, and the conversation that we could have is missing. And so maybe one time we can all just get together and I will listen and let everyone else speak in conversation with each other, because when you do that, it's really amazing. So thank you to all of our storytellers, and thank you to Pakhuis de Zwijger. I hope that you will donate to them, because, you know, these are not really easy times for the arts with all the subsidies being cut, and it's not easy time for organizations like this and programs like ours. We're all volunteers, but this space, the technical people, everything costs money. Thank you very much to the musician, Shishani. And I just want to end the way I began the first time. Oh, do you want to say something?
Well, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I just want to say thank you to the Pakhuis. They have an Indigenous program coming up next. Please visit their websites. Please make a donation. The Fifth Friday Sisterhood is umbrellaed by Stellascope, along with groups like Future Timers, Torn Curtain, Dungeons and Drag Queens.nl, and I would like to be personally thank everyone. Tori, your chant.
Oh, okay. I have 12 seconds. Anyway, I just want to say, I curse you with justice and so much compassion that your heart breaks wide open. Thank you. Let's get that picture.